Okay. My name is Michelle Coker. I've lived here for about 16 years. I'm a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 14. Oakridge will become my forever home. I look to you citizens to see what you would want to change, and I try to do my best to make that happen. Although sometimes it doesn't always happen. Thank you for coming tonight and listening to what we all have to say.
Good evening, Brian Cutchin. I'd like to first thank the Lane County League of Women Voters for being here, and the Chamber of Commerce and the many folks in the Chamber of Commerce who I can see are helping administrate this whole thing. So thank you to both of you. And I'm glad they were able to be flexible enough to let us reschedule this because I think it's important for them. As I said, Brian Cutchin, and if I don't know you, I'm a Navy veteran of 31 years. I was a Navy pilot by trade. After retirement, did a brief stint flying commercially. And then decided to go into city administration and came here in July of 2019 as your city administrator, serving just over 2.5 years before leaving. Currently doing independent management consulting, primarily right now working for the city of Umatilla on some projects they have there, and interested in running for mayor to continue some of the work that I was able to do as the city administrator. To highlight some of the things that I would focus on if elected, primarily for me, the biggest thing is the city budget because it's still not stable yet. So that would be my primary focus, to work with the city staff to make sure we can stabilize that through increased revenues and efficiencies in operations, and perhaps some reductions if we need to do that. Also want to be able to improve essential city services. I do want to encourage the city council, if elected, to be proactive and be engaged. I think that's important, and focus on results. Additionally, I'd like to engage new and varied businesses to come to Oakridge, because that really is how you're going to increase revenues. And we need to have a lot of new businesses and innovative businesses come in, increase the tax base, as well as increase the population and bring jobs to the city.
Good evening. My name is Donald Grant. I also want to thank the League of Women's Voters and the Chamber, the Westfir, Oakridge-Westfir Chamber.
Sir, speak. The mic. Eat the mic.
Okay. The reason I'm running for city council is I've reached a part of my life where I've realized it's really my turn to give back to a community. I've lived in a lot of communities, and I've raised families, run businesses, and I've never actually participated in this sector of the community. So I believe it's my turn. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jan Hooker, and I have lived here for a little over 12 years. I am on council right now. I'm finishing out a term. It will end in December. I would like to stay on. I think we have a huge job in front of us, but I think with your help and our help, I honestly think we can get it done. I'm married. We have kids, some in Eugene, used to have some in Crescent, but we've got them all down there now. So this is going to be our home for a long, long time. I thank you all for being here, and I thank you for listening to all of us.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce also for being here. My name is Gary Carmen. Most of you would probably hear my name is Poncho. So when I was young, growing up in Oakridge, we had a lot of opportunities for children, where there was roller rink, there was bowling, there was an arcade, many shops to go to. When I was in high school, the mills closed, all of that disappeared. Now that I'm a parent and have young children, I would like them to be able to have opportunities like that and be able to stay in Oakridge. I unfortunately had to move away when everything closed down to find opportunities for work. I've recently moved back, I work as an engineer. And so my big goal is to see Oakridge change and grow to attract families to move here or to stay here. Because right now, there isn't a lot of opportunity for us. And some of my other passions, which kind of tie in with this, are infrastructure and safety, because I believe a walkable, bikeable city is a healthy city. As the mountain biking capital of the Northwest, we may have one bike path, true bike path. I feel we need more. We need more bike paths, more sidewalks, or just areas for people to be safe as they walk around the city. I'd also, I'm very passionate about infrastructure as an engineer, so I feel that my skills, if I'm elected, would help with a lot of those opportunities. Thank you.
Mike.
Okay. I would go about, well, it's kind of, I don't know how to say it. Adding more infrastructure to prevent things from getting out sewage-wise, bring in more, you would say manhole covers, more drainage in that aspect. That's pretty much all I have for that.
Thanks. When it comes to stormwater and getting into the sewage system, the city identified some time ago, the city engineer identified that problem and has identified the actual manholes that need that work. Using the ARPA funds, the federal COVID funds the city received, we were able to do the first phase, or funded anyway, and that work should begin this year. But there are subsequent phases that require more funds, and I would hope, if elected, I will back some of those ARPA funds to fund those future parts of the project which are not yet identified or complete. In addition, as they go about, we could also use some of those funds to strengthen the stormwater system and create catch basins and other identified upgrades that the city has already spoken with DEQ about and relayed to DEQ. So there's already a plan there. It's just a matter of making it a priority. Thank you.
The only thing I'd like to add is possibly look for more grants for the infrastructure of the wastewater system.
Yeah. I hope this works. Now is it working?
I turned it off.
Oh.
Is it working now? Is it? I don't think so.
There it goes.
There it goes.
It's not, please move the other mics away.
Okay.
I'm trying to not, if the mics, everyone's gonna, their ears will hurt.
There. I'm assuming this is the way it works now. It's still now? Now is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't have a lot to say about that. Brian pretty much explained most of it. But I do think we need to look into getting grants for things. ARPA funds are not always going to be there. We need to do as much as we can now. But I do think that grants are the way to go to try and get a lot of our infrastructure done.
I agree with Brian on we need to identify problem areas, build ponds or bioswales to mitigate those waters, direct waters into areas so that they can naturally go back into the ground, evaporate, etc. Another thing I've seen in other cities is they will run a process where people can do things such as redirect their gutters and any kind of water runoff from their property so that it's all contained on their property to then drain back into the ground system. And by doing that, it will allow you to have a discount on your sewer system. So part of your water bill. It may, of course, that's something to look into, may or may not work. I'm not sure how much of a problem that is, but thank you.
Thanks for that question.
It's been a traditional problem in Oak Ridge because we have a large part of the population that's connected and can easily communicate using the city website, city Facebook page, pick up the telephone. We have other parts of the community that are not connected and probably don't want to be connected. And so the problem is, how do you reach that? And, one of the methods that the city has used is inserts in the water bill. So you can put information inside the water bill and people can read the newsletter that's attached there. But I think it's more than that. I think because not everybody reads what's on the water bill and others just don't have a water bill. If they're renters, sometimes the landlord picks up the water bill. So I think it's important, and as mayor, I would endeavor to put out a monthly newsletter and have it staged at places around the city, common places, the supermarket, the post office, where those people that aren't directly connected could get news about the city and what their local government's doing for them, and a place to call if they have questions or an email if they have that. So that's what I do primarily to increase communication within the city. Thank you.
I would establish an email address specifically for the questions that my constituents would have.
I'm a big fan of town hall meetings, so people can start giving us their opinions, either in writing at the town hall, or just ask the questions they're interested in answers to. I also think that anybody that's on council, whether they're mayor, council, whatever, they need to know a lot of people here don't want and don't have computers or phones that they can text. They don't want to pay the texting. I think we have a real problem with communicating in Oak Ridge, and it bothers me. I think we need to get better at what we say, and I also think that a newsletter would be nice. However, I think on the back of the water bill, everybody gets a water bill, almost. We could do something on the water bill that says what's coming up, what the events are going to be. So we just need to keep people informed. Thank you.
I believe we need to have a concerted effort of identifying the different ways we're going to communicate, whether that's water bill, Facebook, email, phone calls, etc., and make sure that we always follow through with those communication paths. No matter what, have a set time, date, or whatever needed, and just make it very consistent. Because if you keep consistency and you keep following the same process, people will get it and they will start to use it. Right now, I agree. I think there is a communication issue, and I don't know where to look for info half the time, but I think we just need to be very dedicated to having a consistent process, whatever it may be.
What I would do, I would keep the way it's going now with Facebook, with email, with our website. But I would also would want to add maybe a bi-weekly printout, kind of like the Dead Mountain Echo used to put out, and place it around businesses. Or also allot a certain time during the week, like between 9 and 10 a.m. If people wanted to call in to ask information, that hour would be designated to take phone calls. Thank you.
That's certainly a tough issue. I believe we need to look for help from the county. We need to continue to address the grant process. Hopefully we'd get to a point where we could eliminate the safety fee sooner than the expiration date, but I honestly don't know all of the intricacies of the operations of that, so that's really hard for me to answer.
I have to say, it's going to be something we have to really look into. I don't like the safety fee. I don't truly believe in the safety fee. However, I do think we need to do something. Police, fire, and ambulance are the most important things right now in this city. We all are getting older. We have issues. I hope we always have them there. I think we need to be able to hopefully get rid of the public safety fee soon. But I think we need to, if it comes to budgeting and cutting costs, we're going to have employees are the high paid ones. So we're going to have to possibly downsize a little bit on every department, not just fire, police, or ambulance. So that's all.
I'm getting more up to speed with this subject the longer I live here, learning more about what's happened. So as it stands, police and fire are something's paid for through your taxes, your house taxes or property taxes. EMS is not a business, but there are businesses do it. It's a for-profit entity. Most do not make a big profit. They mostly break even. I think we need to make sure that the fire and police are funded with their amount. I think we need to have very good numbers on what each one costs, and then use those numbers to then go talk to either the county, the state, local government, whoever we can talk to help us keep the ambulance service here. Because if we lose that service, an ambulance ride is going to be 45 minutes to an hour, and nobody wants that. I have a lot of family lives here, and they're not getting any younger, and I'd like to keep them safe.
What I like to see a little bit is us look into special districting a little bit more to see if that would help reduce the cost of the EMS system. Also with the public safety fee, I know that was like a lot of us, but it was a need to keep it here. And we wanted to take it away, we do, and we are trying our best to take it away too. I wouldn't do that, but it's going to take a little bit of time. As important as our EMS system, police, fire, and ambulance, we need it here in our town. We cannot do without any of them. So we're going to try our best to make it work. Thank you.
So, in my time here as city administrator, I've been able to identify the deficit that the city is experiencing is primarily attributed to the EMS that we provide the city as under contract with Lane County. Lane County is responsible for providing through contracted services the ambulance to the entire county, which they divided up into 8 ambulance service areas. So they have a contract with the city of Oakridge to provide EMS. But as Poncho mentioned, it's supposed to be self-supporting, and Oakridge nowhere now. It's a deficit. So we have to find a solution to that problem, because like all of the people here, I know my safety is I'd like to have a quick response ambulance and not have to wait for 45 minutes to kill the building. So it's important that we work with Lane County for the time, the next 2 to 3 years, to find a solution to make them do what they need to do to make this a affordable and a system that can be run by a contractor and be self-supporting. And that will allow us to circumvent all those funds that are going to cover that deficit to fire and police, to increase training, to increase personnel training, and make those other services that are critical city services up to speed and more accurate of what they should be in a city of this size.
I have to honestly say, I really don't have good ideas on that. I do believe that we have more people than places. I think we need to figure out how, as she said, how are you going to lower the price? How are you going to get everybody to live into a place you can? It's almost impossible. I really don't have any clear solutions, but I would be open to suggestions, checking them out.
As it was explained to me during the sequel, if you have a piece of property, you can't build a house. I believe the city code should maybe be looked at so that we can do more infill, more multi-housing developments. Because I mean, like Jan said, if there's a shortage of houses and a lot of people, house prices shoot up and there's people without housing. So you need to build more multi-housing developments to infill those areas. How difficult that is, I'm not sure, but we just hired somebody to look into that. Thank you.
I would look more into some places like the games and see if something like that would work. But to have an honest, straightforward answer for you as to what I would do with that, I don't have one either. Any suggestions would be much appreciated, but it is definitely needed here for not only our community, but people that want to come here, people that want to stay living here. Thank you.
There is a significant need for housing. The city was fortunate enough to get 2 grants recently in one housing needs analysis on a targeted growth management, which are directly going to address these issues, particularly the housing needs analysis. So I think we need to overhaul the city zoning code and change some of our R1 areas, which is residential one house only, to multifamily, to R2. We need to take the minimum size of a house and perhaps make it so it can accommodate a smaller house. And you can fit more houses on one piece of property. A development, or like I'm not saying tiny homes, but I'm saying smaller size houses, whatever the population thinks they want to see. That's all going to take some time because it does take time to go through changing zoning. And the new employee he helped me rezone a whole bunch of properties on Kokanee, so he knows exactly what he's doing. So between those grants, your city planner, and the newly seated council, I think we can do a lot of headwork, or make a lot of headway on addressing the housing issues here.
I agree with Brian. The code needs to really seriously be looked at and a lot of changes made. Smaller houses, possibly even smaller lots, multi-family units. But what's really gonna make that work is to make it attractive for developers to come in here and build the buildings. That's the bottom line. I don't have an answer for that, but it's something that we should look into.
Well, I'd like to say, how many jobs do we have in the community? What's the current population? Does it feel, when you look at Oakridge, you feel that it's getting better, it's a little better, more shops open, less rundown buildings. Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, it all comes down to what's our budget look like? You know, are we feeling good about our budget? But yeah, that's hard.
Actually, what I would do is bring more businesses to the industrial park. That's where I see Oakridge growing in its time. It's starting in a distribution center, like already a truck stop. Those things are needed out there. It would help the town grow. It would bring revenue to the city. And it would just make it an all-around better place for people that didn't want to travel down to work, to be more good paying jobs right here in town.
So for the 5-year success, I think I would look at our city strategic plan we paid for and put together 2020 through 2025 as a measurement on there of how you've achieved the goal from that strategic plan, which was you had a public process through city council passes. So I would look at how that being achieved. If you get a majority of those strategic goals accomplished, that to me that's a success. The 10-year success threshold is a little more conceptual. It's out there ways, but in my mind, number one, we want to have a solid financial stability in the city. You want to increase the tax base so you don't end up in the same situation we're in now. And that's done, as Michelle said, through increased businesses in the city, attract people, attract more houses, which also increases the tax base. So success, I would say, the recreational industry here has been the bridge after the mill shut down and helped the city survive. But that's not the only solution. We're going to have to find other businesses that are going to want to come here and stay here and create those jobs and bring people that can do those things. So that, to me, that is a success. How do you increase the revenues instead of cutting services in order to make it move forward? Thank you.
My thoughts on this, but is it just financial? There could be other ways to measure success, progress as well. I'm community right now. I'm not sure that community is trying to be as it really could be. I think, like Jan suggested, town hall meetings, other events that help pull people together. Also.
I agree that the strategic plan, and I've looked that over, I think that does have some, at least in my book, that's one way to measure things. It has some goals that were set. And I believe that was done in 2020. The way I see it, I would think it's not that we're really not tight knit. I think we all have different opinions, and if we're not listened to, that's part of the problem, and that's why we get divided like we do. I think, again, town hall meetings, I think that's going to be a good possibility. I hope and see that our police, fire, and ambulance, I see those as in 5 years being exceptionally good, and I think they will all stay here. I think transparency, I see that in our future, may not be right now, but it is going to happen. And 10 years, who knows? I can see a lot of progress. However, I think each one of us would see it in a different light, what they would want as a 10-year.
Over the years I've lived here, I've watched crime go from nearly none to out of control. I knew it was hard for a police to man the streets when we were down to 2 officers. So I get that part. My best solution would be if the DA would do more. When arrests were made here at Oakridge, things would change. If people are arrested one day for burglarizing someone's home and let up the next morning, things aren't going to change. They're going to keep doing it. So that would be where I would go with that. Our DA needs to start doing more for our community. Thank you.
I agree with Councilor Coker on the county. There are times that our police officers will take someone to the jail and they'll be back after the police officers. So if that, we need to have a better relationship with the DA. I'm not blaming the DA, just our relationship with the fire and probably need to get some further training with the DA. In addition, though, I think it's important that we revise our ordinances dealing with some of the petty crime that we see here. And even the ordinances that cover what you can have in your yard and that kind of thing. It's kind of a burden to go through that you are with neighbors taking care of your yard in your house. You tend to feel like you should too. And that increases the livability of the city and by decreases the crime rates. In addition, as before mentioned, if we can find a solution to the service, we're able to invest more money towards the police department. We can have a stronger police force than they force. So between those two things, I think we can reduce the crime per year.
I mean, draft that ordinances, similar to the neighborhood watch program. A lot of the neighborhoods around here are really tight knit. Most people here don't have neighbors.
We do have neighborhood watch here in Oakridge. It's probably not as visible as it used to be. However, we do have people that go through neighborhoods that keep an eye on things. One thing I would love to see is, if we possibly could, is to use our jail, and I know it needs revamping, but would be to use our jail for a weekend for somebody that we could run through our court. The DA, yes, she doesn't prosecute. She sent something out here not too long ago that she wasn't going to file on petty crimes. But that's kind of what we have up here, is a lot of that type of stuff. So I would like to see, my opinion would be even a couple of extra officers, if at all possible. Get more reserves that could go out.
Brian stole part of my answer there. I also kind of believe in the broken window policy. If a place looks unused or dilapidated or like nobody cares, then people are attracted to have that same mentality, are attracted to those areas, and crime will continue to happen. I think, I don't want to force people to have to clean up their yards and stuff. It would definitely help also for attracting, more people here. If the town looks better, people are going to be more likely to not to live here. And that too will reduce crime. If you have new families here, just more eyes, more filled houses, less run down, half-burnt buildings. I think it would really help reduce the crime rate.
I think that's a course of action to look at, and I think it's probably a positive course of action. If you look at other cities and what they've done, they've taken a very deliberate approach and developed relationships with some of the hosting services that those taxes are automatically withheld and then forwarded to the city. So it takes some of that burden that the city would experience by having to collect taxes of Airbnbs. So I think that's a revenue source that the city needs to look at. I want to make sure, I think it should go through a public process to see if that's what the citizens of Oakridge want to do for revenue generation. And let the city council listen to that and make a decision. But it's not hard. It's just a matter of taking the time to look at short-term rentals, because there are many cities nearby that have already done this. And in addition, and kind of a sort of a side benefit is you can also, as you go through, look at the zoning of where you want to allow Airbnbs to operate. If maybe you don't want them in some very residential neighborhoods, you want it more in a more congested areas, because there are pros and cons to having an Airbnb next to you, to your house if you're living in. So you all want to take a look at that as you look at the tax problem as well. Thank you.
I absolutely agree that there should be a tax. I think the motels and other lodges here are paying a tax. I think it's only fair that the Airbnbs shoulder their responsibility in that area as well.
Well, as unpopular as it is, I agree. We do have to do something with taxing them. I think there are a lot of them in the city. There's a lot more than I ever thought there was. So I really believe that they need to start paying their share.
I'm in agreement. We do need to tax them. I also think we need to look at how many Airbnbs do we allow in our town. I've seen other cities also have a limit to the number of Airbnbs one person can have. Sometimes then if you own a property, if you have an ADU, you can live in that property and have Airbnb plus another one. So we should look at solutions like that if we want to adopt that into our city code.
I absolutely agree. I agree hotels and others like to pay those taxes, and I think Airbnb should pay them as well.
For about 4 years, I've been a board member with the Uptown Business Revitalization Association. I also presently volunteer with the Planning Commission.
Me too.
I am presently on the council. I've been serving since March of this year. I am also a member of the WAC subcommittee, and that's been, well, since they started, I think a couple of months now. Trying to think what else. I guess that's it.
I was on the committee with the selection of the industry director for the city. I also volunteered in the capacity because my wife was doing it, the fires reduction that Sarah Altness was doing in town. I got to go around all the old trails that I used to ride my motorcycle on with her. I also helped with planting abandoned park and some of the movement of trees, etc.
I am now a city councilor since January 2021. And I'm also a member of the Public Safety Committee, and I've also done a lot of volunteer work and a lot of fundraising when my children were all in high school.
Oh, sorry.
Well, my tenure here is relatively short relative to the table here, having only been here about 2.5, 3 years. But prior to that, and after retiring from Navy, I was on several boards, Association of United States Navy, TALUC. And once I got here and stepped into the administrator job, it was kind of an all-consuming job, so kind of hard to volunteer for anything because you're managing the dedicated volunteers that are working at the city. So it was a lot of fun to get to know all those folks that, that do volunteer. Since I left the position, I've joined the Middle Fork Willamette Watershed Council as the treasurer. I volunteer actually at the Warming Center prior to while I was the administrator, as well as I am now chairing a committee that's looking at funding sources to continue to look for funds to renovate the Willamette Activity Center. As you know, there was a significant amount of money given by the state legislature to do that, 1.5 million. And since then, we've got another 50,000 for some technical grants, which we've hired the architect to do some of the preliminary work. So we're continuing to look because the 1.5 is only not going to go very far. It'll probably cover the roof and the exterior walls. But other than that, I continue to volunteer when opportunities come. I help pass out air purifiers for South Willamette Solutions. They've done a fabulous job finding those and getting them to the city citizens when they are desperately needed. Thank you.
Well, I'd love to see a mill come back, but we probably won't see that. I would kind of like to have like a truck stop that would have a restaurant, all that type of stuff. I think it would, even a distribution center would be good. That would pay some good wages for people. It would bring people in as they, I think it would bring people in to work there. I think those are the only two that I really would like to see go in.
After seeing from the smoke and seeing all the fires, I heard people talk before about potentially bringing a biomass center to the OIP. I mean, with all the fuels we have around this town and all the potential fires of the future, it seems like that could be a good solution to help clean up and promote more management of our forests.
In fact, after I took a seat as counselor, I immediately started working on that and talking with various different trucking stop companies. And I found one that's very interested in coming here, but we've got to get infrastructure out to the industrial park first. When I say by a full service truck stop, I mean gas pumps, diesel islands, showers for the truck drivers, a lounging center, a 24-hour cafe, and it'll give them a safe place to park, to sleep when they have to shut down after their time is over, rather than be on the side of the highway. Thank you.
So I work closely with South Willamette Solutions on the biomass effort at the initial stages of it, where we try to attract entrepreneurs that come into the Oakridge Industrial Park and set up business producing these commodities that are unique, using the material off the forest floors to make it a safer place here. So I think that's still needs to be pushed and look towards how we're going to attract those folks and getting grants to enable that process, as well as being able to train the workforce to fill the jobs that those industries would bring. In addition, I think the pandemic has created a huge opportunity for remote workers, and I think we can capitalize on that. We have the fiber here in town. We could do a good job of attracting individuals that either work for a company or independent come into town and get that work and increase that revenue. In addition, I think we can strengthen our retail. If we can clean up Highway 58 and make it look like an inviting place that a business would want to come and set up shop. I think there's some that come here and they look and they go, it looks good, but I'd like to open a business, but I'm not supposed to succeed here. because of the way that Highway 58 looks. So I think we could do a lot there. Thank you.
I think these are all great ideas. I personally, I think everybody's covered everything. Free enterprise, of course, would take control and determine what goes in there, but
I don't really have a good answer for that. I will admit I'm a little bit uneducated on what we even have here at the moment as far as those services are concerned. I mean, the homeless still need a place to go. So if we can help identify places and, you know, work with the city to make those available to them, which I know is already happening, but I mean, make it more of a set, you know, location. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not educated enough on that at the moment.
For our homeless to go and to get a hot meal or to just simply relax and sit down and get off the streets and get off the sidewalks. I just don't know if that's possible here in town with our absence of actual habitable buildings. Thank you.
So I think the Willamette Activity Center project can address some of this issue. If the citizens and the council choose to allow a warming center to operate out there and maybe transition services. And importantly, I think it's important to have facilities, a shower facility if you're homeless, because many of the roadblocks that these folks experience is because they don't have a place to get cleaned up and presentable for a job interview. So why wouldn't you have facilities available at the activity center to allow them to do that? In addition, I believe that what I mentioned before about job training services, bringing a job training service to Oak Ridge could greatly help and get those people the education they need in order to get a job, to be qualified to take a job. But in the end, it's a very difficult problem given the remote location of Oak Ridge, and it's hard to get access to services. So we're going to have to find a way to do it ourselves to whatever fiscal limits we can. Obviously, we have our limitations. And again, grants can chase that too. There's a high focus on grants to address homelessness. So I think that's an important aspect we could take when it comes to going after those funds. Thank you.
I'm kind of a dork on this one. I'm a little bit ignorant. The only thing that really comes to mind as far as mental health goes, I believe the state has reduced their funding for mental health facilities. I don't agree with that. I think there's a huge need, and I think to some extent they've pushed it off onto the local communities. But I do agree it would be great to have some place for these homeless people to go, get a shower, get a meal, and get out of the weather.
I personally think we need to get something like cahoots or that type of thing up here. Some kind of an organization like that to help us. I also think we need a lot more mental health counseling. I think we need to allow them to, as Brian said, possibly a place to shower, get a good meal, but I also think that it can't necessarily be on our dime. I think we need to do some kind of grants that might be able to help with that.
I'm not gonna come up with exactly five, but I'm gonna say family matters. Family matters first and foremost over everything. Your home matters, your time matters, you matter, everybody matters. That's pretty much all I can say. This one caught me totally off guard. There you go, Brian. That one.
Somebody's stopping me at the front. I don't know if I'll get there. So, care for your fellow man, that's probably number one. You need to care for your fellow man. But, day-to-day operations, I say, you want to have integrity, what you do, honesty, and you want to be able to speak the truth and let people know that they trust you. So trust is about it, one of the values. In addition, I think we just need to be open to people, speak the truth, be open, and not be afraid to say something that's hard to hear. It's does no good to just sugarcoat it and not tell the truth because it's pestilent, it's a crisis situation. So, to me, it goes back and forth. That is the primary value in life. But hard work, integrity, honesty.
I'd say one of those elements would be my relationship with God. The other would be dealing with every man honestly and straightforward. Integrity. At the end of the day, my name means something to me in a way that the way that I treat everybody else means something to me as well.
I guess 5 things for me would be honesty, would be communication, would be pride in yourself and in others. I guess integrity would be the only other one that I can think of offhand.
For me, I think my 5 would be, kindness to your fellow man. You need to be polite to people. Also, think about how your actions affect others. What you say, what you do. How will that? Don't just think about yourself. How does that? When I do something, how does that affect somebody else? For me, a big one is follow through. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're going to be there for somebody, be there for somebody. A connection with the community and the people around you, just being very connected to them, and then hard work. It takes time. Put it in time.
So there are several forums that are available and sometimes not well attended by some of the local communities. So I think it's important to engage Lane County Health if we're talking about healthcare services, because they have regular meetings that the staff obviously ought to be involved in, but also a council person or the mayor should also be attending some of these meetings where they're invited to and advocate for increased healthcare services in the city. So I think that's the easiest way to engage the county. The state's kind of a harder nut to crack. So that's more of a case of working with your representatives, your local elects, to make sure that they engage and know your priorities. So you need to be able to articulate what are your priorities, so they, when they're in the right forums, can engage at the state level. Other than that, there are conferences that the elected officials can go to and make those engagements at the state level. But the state is tougher to get action on, and again, should be done for your state elected representatives.
I have to admit I'm fairly ignorant about the ways in which we would reach out to the government. That would be an education for me, and I'm sure that I'd be pretty quick study on that stuff.
I think a lot of the issues could be going through county commissioners and governors and writing, calling, emailing, whatever you have to do. I do think Lane County is a good place to start, and I think Brian is correct in that.
I used to work as a testing engineer and certification for building products. So, my job was to go, talk to the different counties, states, regulating bodies over different areas. You go to LA, it's earthquakes. You go to Florida, it's hurricanes. And the best way to get through and get it done is just keep the horn in their side. Just keep bugging them. Bug multiple people. Eventually, they will get tired of hearing from you from multiple sources, and they will start to work with you and get back to you. And sometimes you just have to be slightly annoying.
By contacting the county commissioner first as well as Lane County Health Authority, and then just move your way up the line by emailing and even calling it, the traditional way to get through to them and try to voice what you want to bring here, and in hopes that then it would just fall down the chain of command and it would go to their superiors and hopefully they would vote for it and help us bring it here.
Again, I would be a big advocate for the public forum, the town hall meeting. I really would, and I think you could get a lot done. You could, there could be some education. There could be some people voicing their concerns. I think a lot could get done there.
Town hall meetings, that's, to me, is a number one thing that we need to have more of, because we aren't getting your opinion except through what's called the Oakridge gossip column. And sometimes it doesn't give the whole story. So I think town hall meetings, I would at least every other month would have a town hall meeting, and if you get tired of them, we can go to once every 3 months. But I also think flyers in the water bills. Most people do get water bills, not all, but, we can do something like that. I do think it's important to hear what you folks want us to hear. And there's a difference between hearing it and listening to it.
I agree. Town hall meetings would be a very good way to get input and hear from constituents. Also, as far as communication, I believe in setting, definitive communication methods. So whether it's email, making sure you get back to people in a consistent time frame, so you know that you've heard them. Receive info. I'm a big person of brainstorming ideas. No idea is a bad idea. Write them all down. You go through them. You rank them. You come up with pros and cons. Maybe part of the town hall meeting. That could be a committee, but you need to listen to people's ideas and make sure that they understand that just because other people might not like it, it's not a bad idea. It's an idea, and I'm always open to ideas.
Great. to the other ways that we communicate with people. Also, a reputable newspaper for our town would be absolutely amazing. Emails, phone calls, all that would be great.
So I'll address the first part of the question, which was how do you get an agenda or way ahead? How do you get that? Where do you get that information from? And I'll harken back to the strategic plan because it has specific action items in that plan. So that should be your guide for what the city council should be dealing with. As a candidate for mayor, if elected, you have a little bit of an advantage because together with the city administrator, you develop the agenda for the meeting so you can kind of drive that. And if I did that, I would use the strategic plan to go after those strategic goals that have been identified by the citizens and the city council. As far as feedback goes, everything they've said here is correct, including feedback, citizen comment at city council meetings, emails that you get from citizens, because believe me, there's no shortage of emails that the mayor gets from citizens once their email address is public. It seems like I remember previous mayors that just their inbox was clobbered with emails. Plenty of feedback there. So I think there won't be a shortage of feedback, particularly for controversial items, but it's those other items you probably need to get feedback on. And the city's also run successful surveys, and I think that's a good source of information. Get a survey out, and you can tell what your response rate is and work from there. Thank you.
I hope I will be able to volunteer on some of these committees. I'm going to continue to be on the WAC subcommittee. I'll do whatever I can do to help. I'll help with the events. Just because a person doesn't win doesn't mean you have to curl up in a little ball and, say, well, that's the way you feel. I don't want people to feel that way. I want them to continue to help the system, the city grow.
I'm already in the works on that if whether I win or not. I have plans to help apply for some grants to get some studies on some areas around Oakridge to increase our bike paths, to connect some of the different communities. So, maybe around town, there's a really good way to get to clean waters. If you want to get to the city, you have to cross highway. It's not really a safe path. It's really important to me that a more connected city where you can walk and bike to the different areas of the town will make it more livable and friendly.
Before we go to you, I would definitely use to get answers for the public safety committee to try to change that. I would definitely be more involved with my public safety committee now that we have a new member and we do have a board now. So, and other things I would probably do is be more involved and actually be out on the town more, even though I'm out every day while working. I would try to get out more to talk to people, and yeah, that's it.
For me, I would continue the volunteer position that I currently do, and I would look out for positions, volunteer requirements, and needs that I have the technical expertise where I can contribute effectively. Because if I volunteer for this, any job that I'm even qualified to even do it, since there. So I would look for volunteer activities that interest me, and it's also make a positive
Barring any conflict of interest, I would also continue to volunteer in the places that I already do. And all I can say is, I would be diligent. Me first, correct?
Yeah.
This is one thing since moving back to Oakridge I've noticed is there are a lot of rumors that I hear, And, you know, you hear things and you say, is that really true? And, you know, so I go and ask questions and try to find out. But I think a lot more face-to-face communication with people and just having one-on-one discussions, you know, it's just, yeah, that's a tough one. Because I think, you know, communities around the world have been struggling with this since communities started. But yes, I think more just communication, more one-on-one, face-to-face interaction, more making people involved. If people aren't involved in the process, they feel left out, or they feel like something nefarious may be happening when absolutely nothing nefarious is happening. I've seen that quite a bit. Yeah.
Be more involved, face to face, be more involved. Don't believe everything you see on Facebook. Get out, talk to people, figure out what's going on rather than sit and say, well, that's what's happening and that's what you believe. And then it just doesn't turn out right. I also think a phone call, an actual phone call may be better rather than texting, emailing. Just to be clear, to be able to work through what the divide has been set.
I think the communication methods that the table came up with will do a lot to reduce the polarization, the free flow of information, because much of that, as has been mentioned, much of the animosity comes from really not knowing the facts about an issue. So I think communication, and part of that would include continue to encourage the city staff, particularly the city administrator, to continue to have an open door policy. I know that he does, and I think that's a great source for understanding some of the issues, because he is living the dream every day on those technicalities. So you can just walk into his office and start talking to him about it, and if you have questions about a particular issue and not get it wrong on a private chat forum. So a newsletter, I think, goes a long way as well, and it's available everywhere, and dispel a lot of the rumors, and give people the knowledge, so they don't have to wonder if it's true or not.
Can't believe there's not a good book about that. These are all great ideas. The only thing that comes to my mind that could possibly be added is some public activities. I don't know, this may sound silly, but a picnic, just to get people out to communicate with each other, and yeah, just an idea.
Everything I've heard has been great. The only thing is, I think, maybe you guys are going to get tired of hearing town hall meeting, but I think town hall meeting is going to be one huge thing. And I think communication from the top down, that's something that is very important. You can't always believe everything you hear. So you go to the source. And I agree. James Clevenger has an open door policy. And if you hear anything, you can go ask him. And if he's able to tell you, he will tell you what the truth is. And you can bank on it.
I think that is a great idea. If something like that were to happen, I would want to see that done in the uptown area, not so much the Highway 58 area. I just think those buildings up there would fit that facade better than Highway 58 would. As far as other ideas, I don't have any. That's really the only one that's ever been bounced around that I've ever heard of. So that would be my opinion.
Yes, we should drop the frontier style requirements. The zoning instruction is probably 40 years old, and I don't know where they got the frontier style idea from, but it's not really representative of this community. And I think the alternative should be, you take a look at the architecture that's already here in the city and the history of the city, and have a planning person, along with community involvement, come up with what should that style look like. And does it all have to be, identical houses and businesses along? No, it doesn't. I think it should be very flexible, but you want to hold to a certain standard so it doesn't become sort of a very strange place. So you want some continuity. So yes, I agree with Charles.
I also agree with Rob on the standard. And I agree with Brian. I don't necessarily have anything as a replacement in mind, but I'm sure we would find something.
I also would drop that. I think we can do much more attractive things. I think we need more attractive things uptown. I also think Highway 58 needs more attractive. Cleaning up buildings that are falling down or run down. I think we can possibly get the owners, tell them, here's what we need to do. We need it attractive. So I do think that there should be a color limit on what, I wouldn't want a bright orange building, even though the beavers like it. But I wouldn't want the green and yellow next to it either. But it's just something that I think is outdated. We need the community's help to figure out what we should have, I think.
I didn't even know we had a Western theme. That seems to be, I find it a little strange since we're logging down that we have a Western theme. If I was going to, personally, I'm not sure if we should have a theme, but if we were going to have one, to me, it would be a logging theme. I realize we're no longer a logging town, but, as other towns have done it, and they have the whole logging district where they kind of honor the fact that it was a logging town and named things after the logging industry, and I think we should maybe, since we can't bring it back, maybe go for where our roots are and follow that path.
So we touched on some of these things on a previous question about bringing businesses, because that is the key, is attracting businesses. I believe it's a difficult situation. We need to be able to incentivize businesses to come here. And how do you do that? Many cities do it through tax incentives, or they loosen up on the SDC system development charges that are charged to new businesses and houses. But we don't even have any system development charges in Oakridge, so there's nothing to give up. So maybe there's some sort of an enterprise zone incentive we could offer businesses to come here, or there are other incentives that perhaps we could do internally that comply with the law, but do attract businesses and provide them a reason to come here and set up shop.
I agree. Free enterprise businesses coming into town are what's going to drive the renovation of this community. Kind of thought.
No, I agree with Brian. It's going to be free enterprise. We need to clean up Highway 58. We need to continue to make our community appear better so that we can attract the type of business that we need.
I really have no ideas, but these all sound great. Sorry.
So if bigger industry were to come here, most of the workforce that was here, a lot has been gone since the census closed. And then I think I looked at the census, like around half the town is retired. So in order to bring an industry here, most likely they're going to have to do something. And they're going to need housing. They're not only going to here that town looks bad. And so I think just having a more livable town, once again, through walkability, being decided safely, people being able to, if you're out and about walking and biking, you're going to be more in touch with your neighbors and your community. And so I think we need to really work on cleaning up the town, making it more exciting to industries.
Well, I agree with that. I also that if we did have infrastructure in a lot of our areas where businesses would come to, and I'm speaking of like bigger businesses, truck stop, distribution center. If we had that infrastructure in there, I believe we could have something out there now. I honestly do. There are a lot of companies that do like Oakridge, then there's some that say no, but there is a lot. So infrastructure is a big thing.
I think that's on a case-by-case basis. Man, if it's for New Year's and everything's wet, I don't see why there couldn't be a few fireworks here or there. But in the middle of the summer when it's really dry, that's I don't know. I'm not really on board with that.
That's a hard question. July 4th, I know there is all kinds of kids and adults that like watching fireworks. That would be a really hard thing unless we could possibly find some place that's going to be over the lake or over the river or something like that. I think we need something like that. However, there is a lot that would have to have conditions put on it, I guess. And if the fire, I guess if the fires were, if it was really dry and that type of thing, and if there were fires and stuff, I could see, unfortunately, I would probably want to not have the fireworks during those times. But I do think we need to have a little bit of something.
I think coming together as a community and celebrating something like 4th of July is very important to everybody. I feel that we need to, if there was to be a ban on fireworks, we should set some sort of limit, if the fire danger is at this level, we're not going with fireworks. Just have a hard stop for whether or not it's going to continue instead of waffling back and forth of are we going to do it or not. Because the big concern for me is it is a small valley surrounded by big mountains with lots of trees. And so if it's really dry here and things catch on fire, there's not a lot of escape paths. You either go up a lamp pass or you start heading down the river. I'm not sure what would happen if we had a fire break out when we had 4th of July fireworks show. It would probably be extremely terrifying. So I think we need to set very hard yes, no, as to whether fireworks will continue.
If we are at an extreme fire danger, then yes, it may be necessary. But I would also find that hard for myself to tell you citizens that you cannot celebrate American freedom. You cannot celebrate Independence Day. That would be a choice that you would solely make, whether it was safe for you to do so or not. So I would have a hard time saying I would take fireworks away. I would not.
So in the short time I've been here, I've experienced the Quist Fire, which was 15 miles away. I've experienced Cedar Creek Fire this year. On Labor Day of last year, we had a fire at the wastewater treatment plant just outside the fence line. And you have the city of Crestwell experience a fire from their 4th of July fireworks. So I would tie fireworks ban to the fire danger level, most likely high or extreme, and enforce it. And there's two kinds here. You have personal fireworks, so that's obviously going to be a kind of a burden on the police, but it's you would have to do that. And then the city obviously has control over the large display. To me, if you're in extreme fire danger, you have no rights putting those fireworks in the air, given the dryness that you see out here. So yes, I would ban them at that level.
Thought this was going to be easy. Yeah, thanks, Poncho. I honestly think the kids are important. I think that they're the ones that we should kind of focus on. Because right now they don't have a lot of things to do. I would love to see things like a mini Olympics or something like that for our kids. The adults could get involved in that. They could be the scorekeepers or whatever. I would like to see them have bicycle races, like three-wheel bicycles, tricycle type things, little kids. I would also like to see them get involved in the sports like basketball and baseball and things like that at an earlier age.
I agree. I think we need more competitions and events for kids. I mean, a big one for me that I've seen work at other places, we don't have a mural of it across from City Hall, is like a Skittles mountain biking facility, like course. So Oakridge is known for mountain biking, but it's not exactly the easiest of mountain biking or most accessible. So like you don't get a lot of families coming there or families going out and mountain biking because it's not, if you have little kids, they can't go on this trail. I think we need areas that, families can do more like hanging out and the kids can ride their bikes. I think we have more events like that, and just cater to the children because, without them, Oakridge won't continue.
There's no meeting plans in process now, but we do have the kids sports that the kids play in for basketball and stuff, and I'd like to see that continue. We also do have a small soccer league that's going now that my grandkids are playing in, so that would continue. As for plans for what more for youth to do, I would love to see nothing more than a youth center brought here. I know it's not going to be part of our budget. I know it's not feasible, but there are grants that we can look into for a youth center to be brought in that may have a small swimming pool inside. It will have a basketball court for our children to play in. It's just, I think it's much needed here since we're so far away from town and there's not really a lot for kids to do here. That would definitely help.
I think there is some facilities here that we can capitalize on and maintain perhaps better. We have basketball courts here. We do have a pump track at a Diamond View. I think the disc golf course, I think that provides a great outlet, particularly the trainer course at Osprey Park. I know Mr. Zilster would love to put in a soccer field at Osprey Park. I think he's all over that. So there are opportunities. In addition, I think the renovation of the Willamette Activity Center, if City Council so chooses, could include some activity rooms for children, as well as childcare, which also kind of goes hand in hand. So maintain what we have, develop what we can afford to, and I think, continue to look for other opportunities. Thanks.
Oregon State University had a little fact gathering meeting a couple months ago, and they were actually mentioning that 4-H club, that they would be able to, if they did open an extension here, they would sponsor a 4-H club and other activities for children as well.
Glad you first.
Yeah, that is a difficult question. I mean, there are a lot of towns that have had massive growth. I mean, if you look at like say Sisters, Pine, they went through massive growth. But some of that growth took quite a while to happen. It wasn't just 1 year. They were, struggling forest town to all of a sudden now they're a booming community. So that those changes take time. I mean, one thing you can do is that I have seen applied in places that are being renovated and brought up is you have a tax cap. It can only increase by a certain amount per year for 10, 20 years. I lived in a community like that, actually had a fantastic opportunity to buy a house with extremely low taxes. And because of the, tax cap year to year, my taxes, even though the community skyrocketed with growth, my taxes did not increase hardly at all. So that is one way of looking at it. But usually those are very targeted for specific areas, not for the entire city.
That one.
So I think Brady mentioned that we got a study for the targeted growth management. We'll take a look at the zoning instructions and see how we can prevent unrestricted growth. Nothing wrong with growth, but you want to control it. You don't want it to be out of hand and result in bad situations or overbuilding or other things like that. But as far as tax increases, I mean, I think 50 are already on property taxes. So I'm not sure that you're going to see a unrestricted growth of property taxes.
Client said there is a current property taxes.
The only addition to that would be bond commissions, and those are voted citizens. So they only increase the policy, which is close, given our average close to the top of what we should try to pass. So it would be a situation where communities voted on.
Bend went through that at one point as well. They were not a small community per se, but they were a smaller community, and all of a sudden people retired and thought Bend looked wonderful, and it went crazy. So personally, I think we need new businesses. However, I think we also need to focus on specific types of businesses that would help people move in, but not everybody at once. And I know our taxes, I don't believe they're really as bad as a lot of places are. So, but I do think that type of thing. I do agree with Poncho on with Dirk, on what he says on things like that. It is important.
I want to thank the chamber and all the volunteers that helped put this together, and I want to thank all of you for coming. If you do decide to vote for me, I will most certainly attack the public safety area first, and that is what I'm working my hardest on, as well as trying to get that business that I've been working with for almost 2 years into the industrial. I love Oakridge. Each and every one of you make this town just what it is. Thank you very much for your time.
I'd like to thank the citizens for coming out, and believe me, the questions are invaluable just to hear what you're thinking, what's on your mind, because it's, particularly if elected, I would have to take a hard look at all those and see how to respond to those, take action on those. If you, what I asked you to do, hopefully I responded to those questions clearly for all of you, and you understood what I was trying to say. And I ask that you consider a vote for me now. So next couple of days. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for coming out here tonight. Thank you. I don't have much to say. I didn't prepare a closing statement. I'm ready for city council.
We got our own cheese.
Again, I'm Jan Hooker, and I hope every one of you realize, for people that are not real willing to put themselves out there, this is probably one of the most intimidating, hardest thing I've ever done, is answer questions that I've thought of before I started running and then forgot. And you guys have asked them. I appreciate every one of you for coming out, taking the time to come out. It's important to us. I appreciate that. And if I can get your vote, I would appreciate it. If not, I understand, but I will still continue to do what I can for the city. Thank you.
I wanted to thank everybody for coming out. Hopefully some of my answers resonated with you. I hope you vote for me, but I think everybody up here believes that, we're all trying to do what's best for Oakridge. I don't think anybody's a bad choice. And, get out there and vote.